What happens when a beloved comedy actor known for keeping things light walks onto a live daytime talk show and suddenly finds himself in a tense, no-holds-barred debate with one of the most outspoken hosts on television? Make sure to subscribe to Talk Show Fallout and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The audience is already energized, clapping as the camera pans across the studio. There's that familiar daytime buzz, warm, conversational, but always with an edge because you never really know where things might go. The hosts are seated, smiling, papers in front of them, mugs on the table. Joy leans slightly forward, smiling toward the camera. We're back, and we're joined by actor, director, and producer Ben Stiller. You know him from basically everything. Light laughter from the audience. Ben walks out, waving casually, that relaxed, slightly awkward charm people recognize immediately. He shakes hands, sits down. "Thanks for having me," he says, adjusting in his seat. Another host jumps in warmly. "We're so excited you're here. The new project looks amazing." "Thank you," Ben replies, nodding. "Yeah, it's been a long time coming." For the first couple of minutes, everything flows smoothly. They talk about his latest project, behind-the-scenes stories, a few jokes. Ben even gets a good laugh when he pokes fun at himself. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing half the time," he says. The audience laughs again. It's comfortable. Safe. Then, as it often happens on these shows, the conversation starts to shift. Joy glances down at her notes, then looks up with a different tone. Still smiling, but more pointed. "So, Ben," she begins, "you've also been pretty vocal lately about certain social and political issues." There's a slight pause. Not long, but noticeable. Ben nods. "Yeah, I think a lot of people are right now." Joy tilts her head. "Right, but some people feel like actors maybe should stick to acting." A few audience murmurs ripple through the room. Ben smiles politely, but there's a subtle change in his expression, more focused now. "I've heard that before," he says calmly. Joy continues. People tune in to be entertained, not necessarily to be told what to think." Another host lightly interjects, trying to soften it. Or at least, that's what some viewers say. Ben nods again, still composed. "Sure, I get that. But I also think everyone has a voice. And if you have a platform, it's kind of hard to ignore what's happening around you." Joy leans back slightly, crossing her arms. "But do you think that sometimes it comes off as preachy?" There's a soft ooh from somewhere in the audience. Ben pauses for a second, not defensive, just choosing his words. "I think it depends on how it's done," he says. "And I think people can tell the difference between someone sharing their perspective and someone talking down to them." Joy quickly responds. "But don't you think a lot of celebrities do talk down to people?" The energy shifts again, slightly sharper now. Ben keeps his tone even. "Some probably do. But I don't think that's exclusive to celebrities." A few claps from the audience. Joy raises an eyebrow. "That's fair. But you're in that group." Ben gives a small smile. "I'm also a person. Before anything else." The audience reacts, a mix of applause and murmurs. Another host jumps in, sensing the tension building. "I think what Ben is saying is," Joy interrupts. "No, I understand what he's saying. I'm just asking, where's the line?" Now it's clearly turning into more than a casual segment. Ben leans slightly forward. "The line is probably different for everyone." Joy shakes her head lightly. "But that's the problem, isn't it? When everyone decides their own line, it turns into noise." Ben responds quickly this time, still calm but firmer. "Or it turns into conversation." A louder reaction from the audience, some clapping. Joy doesn't smile now. Conversation is one thing. Influence is another. Ben tilts his head slightly. "You have influence too." That lands. The audience reacts instantly, a louder "oh" spreads across the room. Joy pauses for a split second, then smiles again, but it's tighter. "Of course I do. But I'm not telling people how to live their lives." Ben replies, "Neither am I." Joy leans forward again. "But when you speak on big platforms, people listen differently." Ben nods. "That's true for anyone sitting at this table." Now the tension is fully visible. The other hosts glance between them, trying to keep things from tipping too far. One host laughs lightly. "Okay, we're getting into it now." The audience laughs nervously. Joy gestures slightly with her hand. "I just think there's a responsibility that comes with that." Ben agrees. "I do too." Joy immediately follows. "So where does that responsibility end?" Ben doesn't hesitate this time. "It doesn't. That's the point." A beat. The audience claps again, louder this time. Joy looks at him carefully. So you think you should always speak out? Ben shakes his head. No. I think you should speak when you have something meaningful to say. Joy responds. And who decides what's meaningful? Ben smiles slightly. The same people who decide what's worth watching. That line hits. The audience reacts, a mix of applause and audible reactions. Joy lets out a small laugh, but it's edged. So now it's the audience's fault? Ben quickly clarifies. No, not at all. I'm saying people are smart. They can choose what they engage with. Joy leans back again, shaking her head slightly. I think you're giving people too much credit. That gets a mixed reaction, some laughs, some murmurs. Ben raises his eyebrows slightly. I think you might be underestimating them. The audience reacts again, louder this time. Now the energy in the room is completely different from the start. What began as a friendly interview has clearly turned into a real debate. One of the co-hosts tries to step in again. Okay, let's... But Joy cuts in, still focused on Ben. Let me ask you this. Do you think your opinions carry more weight because you're famous? Ben answers calmly. They carry more reach. Not more weight. That line lands even harder. A strong wave of applause fills the studio. Joy pauses again, clearly not expecting that exact answer. She nods slowly. That's an interesting way to put it. Ben shrugs lightly. It's just how I see it. The camera briefly cuts to the audience, some nodding, some whispering to each other. Joy looks down at her notes, then back up. I still think there's a danger there. Ben responds. There's always a danger in silence, too. That line shifts the room again. A noticeable reaction, quieter this time, but deeper. Even the other hosts go silent for a second. Joy looks at him, studying him now rather than challenging immediately. And for the first time since the tension started, there's a pause that feels less like interruption, and more like something building. The segment hasn't exploded yet, but it's right on the edge. And you can feel it. There's a brief pause after that last line. Not the kind of silence that feels empty, but the kind that feels loaded. You can sense the audience leaning in, waiting to see who's going to speak next. Joy breaks it first, her tone measured but clearly more direct now. But silence and overexposure aren't the same thing. Ben nods slightly, not interrupting her. She continues. There's a difference between contributing to a conversation and dominating it. A few audience members murmur in agreement. Ben responds calmly. I don't think sharing a perspective is dominating anything. Joy immediately cuts in. When millions of people follow you, it can be. Now the overlap starts, that classic talk show rhythm where people begin speaking just a bit over each other. Ben keeps his voice steady. But those millions of people can also choose not to listen. Joy shakes her head. That sounds good in theory. It's not always how it works in reality. One of the co-hosts jumps in quickly, trying to balance things. I think what Joy is saying is that influence carries unintended consequences sometimes. Ben turns slightly toward her, acknowledging the point. Of course it does. Everything does. Joy leans forward again. So then why not stay in your lane? That line lands sharper than anything she's said so far. A louder reaction from the audience, some gasps, some claps. Ben's expression changes just a little, still controlled, but now clearly engaged on a different level. I don't really believe in that phrase, he says. Joy raises an eyebrow. Why not? Ben answers without hesitation. Because it assumes people are only one thing. A small wave of applause builds. Joy responds, or it assumes that people should respect boundaries. Ben nods. Boundaries matter. But so does growth. Joy quickly counters. Growth doesn't mean stepping into areas you're not qualified to speak on. Now the tension spikes. Ben leans slightly forward, mirroring her posture. And who decides qualification? Joy answers immediately, experience. Knowledge. Expertise. Ben replies, so you think only experts should speak? Joy says, on certain issues? Yes. Ben pauses for half a second. Then most conversations wouldn't exist. That gets a noticeable reaction. Some laughter, some clapping. Joy doesn't smile this time. Maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing. The audience reacts again, mixed louder. Another host tries to step in, laughing lightly. Okay, now we're really getting into philosophy here. But neither Joy nor Ben backs off. Ben keeps his tone even. I think conversation is how people learn. Joy responds, and I think misinformation spreads the same way. That line hits. A louder mem from the audience. Ben nods slowly. That's true, but shutting people out doesn't fix that. Joy leans back, then forward again, clearly not letting go of the point. No one's saying shut people out. I'm saying, be responsible with your platform. Ben replies, I agree with that. Joy immediately follows, but agreeing and practicing are two different things. There's a noticeable shift. That line feels more personal. Ben catches it. Are you saying I'm not responsible? Joy shrugs slightly. I'm asking the question. The audience reacts again, that low, tense murmur. Ben takes a breath, still composed. I try to be thoughtful about what I say. Joy responds, but thoughtful to who? The people who already agree with you. A few claps from one side of the audience. Ben shakes his head. No. Thoughtful in general. Joy presses further. Because it often sounds like you're speaking to one side. Now the tension is unmistakable. Ben replies a bit firmer now. Or maybe that's how it's being received. Joy says, or maybe that's how it's being delivered. A louder reaction from the audience. The back and forth is getting sharper. One of the co-hosts raises her hand slightly. Okay, but Joy continues, not breaking eye contact with Ben. Do you ever consider that? Ben answers, of course I do. Joy follows immediately. And yet you keep doing it. That line lands hard. The audience reacts, louder, more divided now. Ben tilts his head slightly. Doing what? Joy responds, speaking in a way that alienates half the audience. There it is. The moment where the conversation fully shifts from general debate to direct critique. Ben pauses, not long, but enough to show he's choosing his words carefully. I don't think sharing my perspective is alienating, he says. Joy replies, it can be. Ben nods. Anything can be. Joy shakes her head. That's a deflection. A sharp reaction from the audience, some gasps. Ben doesn't raise his voice, but his tone tightens just slightly. No, it's reality. Joy leans forward again. Reality is that people feel talked down to. Ben responds, and reality is that people also feel unheard. That line shifts the energy again. A wave of applause rolls through the audience, stronger than before. Joy pauses, clearly registering the reaction. She nods slowly. So now you're speaking for them too? Ben replies calmly. No. I'm acknowledging them. Joy lets out a short breath, almost a laugh but not quite. That sounds very noble. The tone of that line draws a reaction, a mix of laughter and tension. Ben doesn't smile this time. It's not about being noble. Joy responds. Then what is it about? Ben answers, being honest. A beat. The audience claps again, louder, more unified this time. Joy looks around briefly, then back at him. Honesty doesn't always equal accuracy. Ben nods. That's fair. Joy continues. So when you speak, how do you make sure you're not just amplifying your own bias? Now the question feels more pointed than anything before. Ben leans back slightly, then forward again, clearly engaged. I try to listen as much as I speak, he says. Joy quickly responds. But we don't see that. Part, do we? Ben replies. That doesn't mean it's not happening. Joy says. Or it means it's not happening enough. The audience reacts again, louder, more divided. One host turns toward the crowd, half joking. We're going to need a break after this. Laughter breaks some of the tension, but only slightly. Joy keeps going. Let me ask you something more direct. Ben nods. Okay, Joy says. Do you think celebrities should influence public opinion? The room quiets again. Ben answers carefully. I think people influence public opinion. Not just celebrities. Joy shakes her head. That's not what I asked. Ben responds, and I'm answering it honestly. Joy leans in. It's a yes or no question. Ben smiles slightly, but there's an edge now. Nothing is ever just yes or no. The audience reacts, some laughter, some applause. Joy doesn't laugh. It can be. Ben replies, not when it comes to people. That line lands. A strong wave of applause fills the studio. Joy pauses again, longer this time. She looks at him, then down at her notes, then back up. And now, for the first time, there's a noticeable shift in her expression. Less confrontational, more calculating. But the tension hasn't gone away. If anything, it's just getting sharper. And you can feel that the next question, whatever it is, might push this from a heated debate into something much bigger. The air in the studio feels tighter now. Even the audience, which had been reacting loudly just moments ago, settles into a quieter, more focused attention. You can sense that whatever comes next isn't going to be brushed off or laughed away. Joy looks directly at Ben, her tone shifting again. Not louder, but more precise. All right, let me take a different angle here. Ben nods slightly. Okay. She taps her notes lightly on the table, then sets them down. You say you're being honest. You say you're trying to contribute to a conversation. But when people disagree with you, do you actually engage with that? Or do you just dismiss it? A few audience members murmur. That question hits differently. Ben leans back for a second, then forward again, hands lightly clasped. I don't think I dismiss it. Joy tilts her head. You don't think, or you don't? That subtle push gets a reaction. A few oohs from the audience. Ben lets out a small breath, still calm. I try not to. I mean, I'm human. I'm sure there are times I could do better. Joy responds quickly. But that's the point, isn't it? You have a massive platform, and trying might not be enough. Ben nods. That's fair. But I don't think perfection is the standard either. Joy says, no one's asking for perfection. Just accountability. Ben answers, and I believe in that. Joy leans forward slightly. Then let's talk about it. Now the tone sharpens again. She continues, there are people who feel like when celebrities speak on serious issues, they simplify them. They turn complex situations into sound bites. Ben listens without interrupting. Joy adds, do you think that's a fair criticism? Ben pauses briefly. Sometimes, yeah. The audience reacts, that honesty lands. Joy raises her eyebrows slightly, almost surprised. Okay, so if you know that, why keep doing it? Ben doesn't hesitate. Because not speaking at all isn't better. Joy counters immediately. But speaking poorly can be worse. A louder reaction, the tension spikes again. Ben leans in, his tone still controlled but more direct now. I don't think I'm speaking poorly. Joy says, some people would disagree. Ben nods. Some people will always disagree. Joy responds, that's convenient. That line draws a strong reaction, louder, oohs, and scattered applause. Ben's expression tightens just slightly. No, it's reality. Joy shakes her head. It's also a way to avoid criticism. Ben replies, or it's a way to accept that you can't please everyone. The audience reacts again, divided but engaged. One of the co-hosts tries to step in, smiling nervously. Okay, we're getting into some real. Joy lifts her hand slightly, not breaking eye contact with Ben. No, I want to stay here for a second. The room quiets again. She continues, slower now, more deliberate. Because this matters. When you speak, people listen. Whether you want them to or not. Ben nods. I understand that. Joy follows up. So when you get something wrong, what do? Ben answers. I try to correct it. Joy immediately asks, publicly? Ben pauses for a split second. If it's something I said publicly, then yeah. Joy leans in further. Can you give an example? Now that question lands differently, more pointed, more personal. The audience goes quiet again. Ben takes a breath. I don't have a specific example off the top of my head right now. Joy tilts her head. That's interesting. A few audience members react, some murmurs, a couple of claps. Ben responds, not really. It just means I don't keep a list. Joy says, or it means you haven't done it. That line hits hard. A louder reaction, mixed but intense. Ben straightens slightly in his seat. That's not true. Joy raises an eyebrow. Then why not name one? Ben keeps his composure, but his tone is firmer now. Because this isn't a prepared statement. We're having a conversation. The audience reacts, a wave of applause. Joy nods slowly, but she doesn't back off. Exactly. And in a real conversation, specifics matter. Ben replies, so does context. Joy says, context can also be used to avoid accountability. That gets another strong reaction. At this point, even the other hosts are visibly unsure whether to jump in or let it play out. One of them finally speaks up, trying to ease things. I think what Joy is getting at is, Ben turns slightly toward her, acknowledging. I understand what she's getting at. Then he looks back at Joy. And I don't disagree that people should be held accountable, he adds. Joy responds. Then why does it feel like you're resisting that idea? Ben answers. I'm not resisting it. I'm pushing back on the assumption that I'm not already doing it. That line lands clean. The audience reacts, louder applause, more unified this time. Joy pauses again. For a brief moment, she doesn't interrupt. She studies him, and now there's a noticeable shift. The back and forth is still intense, but it's less about quick jabs and more about who can hold their ground. Joy finally speaks again, her tone slightly lower. Let me ask you something else. Ben nods. Go ahead. She says, do you think people like you shape culture? The question hangs in the air. Ben answers carefully. I think culture is shaped by a lot of people. Not just one group. Joy presses. But you're part of that group. Ben nods. Sure. Joy continues. So you have power. Ben replies, I have influence. There's a difference. Joy quickly responds, is there? Ben leans forward slightly. Yes. Power controls. Influence suggests. That line lands immediately. A strong wave of applause breaks out. Joy pauses, and for the first time, she doesn't jump in right away. The audience reaction lingers. Ben continues, calmly but clearly. And people can choose whether or not to accept that influence. Joy finally responds, but there's a slight change in her tone. Less sharp, more probing. You really believe that? Ben nods. I do. Joy looks out toward the audience for a moment, then back at him. Because a lot of people would argue that influence can be just as strong as power. Ben replies, it can be. But it's not the same thing. Joy says, to the people affected by it, it might feel the same. That line lands with a quieter, more thoughtful reaction. Ben pauses, and this time, he doesn't respond immediately. There's a shift. Not in volume, but in weight. For the first time, it feels like both of them are not just debating. They're actually considering what the other is saying. But the tension hasn't disappeared. If anything, it's evolved. Because now it's not just about who's right. It's about who's making the stronger case. And the audience can feel that something bigger is about to come. Something that could tip this entire exchange in one direction or the other. There's a long pause after that last exchange. The kind that doesn't feel awkward, just heavy. The audience is quiet, watching closely, waiting to see who moves first. Joy exhales lightly, then straightens in her chair. Her tone shifts again, less confrontational now, but still firm. All right, I think we've gone pretty deep here. A few light laughs ripple through the audience, breaking some of the tension. One of the co-hosts smiles, jumping in quickly. Deeper than we expected, that's for sure. More laughter, a bit louder this time. Ben lets out a small smile too, the first one in a while. Yeah, this was not the usual promo segment. That gets a warm reaction, applause mixed with laughter. Joy nods slightly. No, it wasn't. But I think these conversations matter. Ben agrees. I do too. There's a brief moment where it feels like things might settle into a calmer tone. But the energy of everything that's been said is still lingering in the room. Joy looks back at him, one last question clearly forming. Let me just say this, even if we don't agree on everything. Do you understand why some people feel frustrated? The question lands differently. It's not sharp, it's direct. Ben nods without hesitation. Yeah, I do. The audience reacts, softer this time, but appreciative. Joy continues. And do you think that frustration is valid? Ben pauses, then answers carefully. I think people's feelings are always valid. But I also think what we do with those feelings matters. That line lands clean. A wave of applause fills the studio. Not explosive, but steady. Joy nods slowly. That's fair. For the first time since the debate began, there's no immediate pushback. One of the co-hosts smiles, clearly relieved. Okay, we found some common ground. The audience laughs, clapping again. But then Ben adds something, calmly, not aggressively, but with a clarity that cuts through the moment. I just don't think the answer is telling people to stay quiet, he says. The room shifts again, not into tension, but into attention. Joy looks at him, listening. Ben continues. I think the answer is better conversations. More listening. On all sides. The audience reacts, a stronger wave of applause now. Joy nods slowly. I can agree with that. There's a noticeable release in the room, like something that had been building finally settles. One of the co-hosts claps lightly. There we go. That's what we like to hear. The segment begins to wrap. Ben Stiller, everyone, she adds, gesturing toward him. The audience applauds, louder now, more unified. Ben smiles, nodding. Thank you. The music starts to come up slightly, that familiar signal that the segment is ending. But even as the cameras pull back, you can still see people in the audience talking to each other, reacting, some nodding, some still debating quietly among themselves. And that's where the real story begins. Because within minutes of the segment ending, clips start circulating online. Short clips. Quotes. Reactions. One of the first viral moments? Ben saying, "You have influence too." Another one spreads quickly. There's always a danger in silence too. And then the line that really takes off across social media. They carry more reach. Not more weight. People start picking sides almost immediately. Some viewers praise Ben, calling him calm, respectful, and articulate under pressure. Comments flood in saying he handled it without losing control and made his points without attacking. Others side with Joy, saying she asked the tough questions and didn't let things slide. They call her direct, necessary, and willing to challenge celebrity influence. Clips of their back and forth get reposted across platforms with captions like, "Did Ben just shut that down?" Joy wasn't backing off. This is how debates should be. Within hours, hashtags start trending related to the exchange. Media outlets pick it up too, framing it as a heated on-air debate and a rare unscripted moment of real tension on daytime TV. Backstage, according to people who were there, the tone is much calmer. Ben reportedly thanks the hosts before leaving, even exchanging a few quiet words with Joy off camera. No shouting, no drama behind the scenes, just a conversation that stayed on camera and let the audience decide what to think. Producers, however, are already talking about it as one of the most engaging segments they've had in a while. Because it wasn't forced. It wasn't scripted. It felt real. And that's exactly why people are still talking about it. By the end of the day, millions have seen at least one clip from the segment. Some agree. Some don't. But almost everyone has an opinion. And that's what keeps the conversation going. As the final moments of the show fade out and the credits begin to roll, the energy from that exchange still lingers. Not just in the studio, but online, where the debate continues long after the cameras stop. Make sure to share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to Talk Show Fallout for more real talk show stories.